It's no sweat for high drama. I've got 3 plays to review now at the Public. Lynn Nottage's Sweat explores Reading, Pennsylvania, which holds the dubious distinction of being the poorest city in America. There is nothing worse than being a factory town that loses its factory. How this tears a community and friends apart and leads to desperate actions that there is no returning from. Lynn Nottage has done an astounding job of creating a true representative of the jobless and what it does to their psyche. Jordan Thaler and Heidi Griffith have impressively cast us with exceptional actors who really inhabit the nitty-gritty of their characters. I should know, I grew up in Dunkirk, this small town that lost its factory, and we still haven't recovered from it. The way this play captures that destruction of the working middle class is frightening. Making it even more relevant is the treatment of the immigrant Oscar, who is just as hardworking and decent as they are, but because he is an immigrant, he inspires fear instead of we're all in the same boat. This play, more importantly, taps into the success of Trump's campaign and makes you understand these people, even if you don't agree with their methods of coping, which are quite deplorable. Miss Nottage has shown again and again how women overcome working conditions against the odds. This is a must-see. Next at the Public is Universal's Party People, which reflects on the history and legacy of the Black Panther 50 years later and what effect it had on their generation and future generations. Mainly, what did it do to the children whose parents ended up dead or in jail for their whole lives. Betrayals were remembered and exposed. Paranoia and fears were still felt. There was still a lot of anger to go around from both sides. It may have started out for justice, for just us, and better living conditions, education, food, dealing with police brutality, but inner squabbles and deaths and drugs dampened their spirits, and in the end those issues are still being fought. With all this machismo and empowerment going on, what place do the women hold? Some interesting points were made in this well-meaning production that was well acted by the ensemble. Trouble is, it came out a bit pretentious with the young folks' use of video, and this politically incorrect clown character of Primo just didn't fit in with the rest of the narrative. I realized he was supposed to be jarring, but I just found it pathetic. The contradictions of the original people's remembrances and became of them refuted all the good they try to do. Despite its flaws, this is worth seeing in today's political climate, and I give it a happy face minus. This is the final installment of Richard Nelson's 3-play cycle, The Gabriels, Election Year in the Life of One Family. In Women of a Certain Age, the women are still cooking and pondering about life in general. Dreams, ghosts, and the past hover over their conversation. All that is accomplished is a yummy, smelly meal cooked by consummate actors that we can't partake in. I could just repeat my previous reviews. I always find Richard Nelson boring and pretentious, that I can't stand him. But if you want to see all 3 of these horrible plays together, you can. It's more on my Facebook.
Origin Theatre Company is presenting Poison on Theatre Row. It's written by Locke Wekemans and directed by Erwin Maas, and it concerns a Dutch couple who 9 years ago lost their son Jacob as the result of a hit-and-run incident. The man soon moved on and is now living with another woman in another country. The wife, however, was very, very, very much destroyed by this loss of her son. Eventually, it's about a play of they lost their son, they lost each other, they lost themselves. I thought it was very profound and very moving, and I loved the 2 performers, especially Birgit Huppach, but Michael Lawrence is quite, good too. So for me, this play worked.
This is an Emperor's New Clothes. The play is naked! It is not profound at all. It is pretentious and repetitious and boring and totally unmoving, which is sacrilege to a dead baby play. Rabbit Hole by David Lindsay Abaire was so much better, and it dealt with the exact same problem. And I thought the performers were outstanding and they rose above the material. And we should mention Jordan Rudder. He had the most hauntingly beautiful voice. He sang German Lieder between the scenes. I mean, it was just gorgeous. I mean, everyone is different how they deal with tragedies, which doesn't make them right or wrong. So, I mean, it had one good point to prove, but I just did not like this.
I thought it really captured the feeling of loss and how it is different for different people.
I saw 2 plays at the Signature. It is 1950 apartheid Port Elizabeth, South Africa, where Athol Fugard has set his definitive play, Master Harold and the Boys. Willie, while cleaning the tea room, is practicing for the big ballroom competition under Sam's patient tutelage. Schoolboy Hallie comes petulantly in from the rain. His parents run the tea room, and he always goes there after school to do his homework. This time his alcoholic crippled dad is in the hospital where his mom is visiting him, and hopefully his pathetic dad will stay there. Athol Fugard cleverly sets up the characters so we like them, and we think they like and respect each other in this violent society. He uses ballroom as a metaphor where accidents don't happen and there are no collisions or punishment and everything is elegant and fair. But as Hallie remarks, there is always perpetual disappointment as someone comes along to spoil things. Nothing can spoil my enjoyment of the play. The actors capture perfectly making something good out of a bad situation and how it can all change with the wrong words or actions. Master Harold and the Boy teaches a lesson that never gets old. Plus, it is a pleasure to finally see a straightforward play. I've been going to a lot of repetitious what the fuck plays lately. This gets a happy face plus. Susan Laurie Parks' early work, The Death of the Last Black Man in the Whole Entire World, also known as the Negro Book of the Dead, is one of those repetitious what the fuck plays I was talking about. All you have to do is read the characters' names in the cast listings and you know half the story. For example, all Mirari Sitol says is prunes and prisons, prunes and prisms. This was insufferably tedious. The play consisted of repeating the play's title and black man moves hands, but not yet. Also, write down the words and hide under a rock so show existed. Something about killing hens, dropping eggs, holding onto a watermelon. This may hold some sort of significance, but to me, words without meaning are just words and not a play. It's more like a beatnik poem. But then again, I hate non-linear plays. My former colleague Rania Khalil would have loved this. I'm giving this a major unhappy face. Go see Master Harold and the Boys and skip this one.
At the Brick, I saw Beyond the Horizon, which is part of Target Margin's Unseen O'Neill Lab. And they're a very experimental group. They do really exciting productions of different ways of looking at classic plays. This is one experiment that didn't quite work for me. The play concerns 2 brothers, one who yearns to go to the sea, the other one who's perfectly happy to be a farmer, who both love the same girl. When she decides she loves the one who wants to go to the sea, he decides to stay home to be with her, and everybody's lives are changed for the worse. I thought the opening scene, the performers did really well of getting this basic information down. But then there was video that didn't really work at all for the other characters who we never get to see. And later, when the young characters grow up, the performers didn't really have the maturity or the ability to convey these emotions. Even though we do have a vegetarian feast of brown bread and beans, I still felt unsatisfied and empty. So I'm giving this an unhappy face.
And this closed already, but coming up you can see Dynamo, Derned Queer, Marco Millions, The Great Guy Brown, and Military Veteran Theater Making Workshop.
So hopefully some of them are much more interesting.
Eric Eames' Clover is another one of those repetitious, what the fuck, nonlinear plays that I detest, but others find fascinating. I think it will help if you know from the very beginning that this is a fever dream of John Cronin, who's got brain cancer, so that's an excuse to write an incomprehensible play. It's divided into 3 separate stories that have nothing to do with each other except in relating violent episodes, except the last one. The first, we are told repeatedly, is about an old man who loses his 3 sons and a wife. The second and most interesting section was about Emmett Till and his mom and dad. Of course, he is also murdered brutally, like in the other play. At least I was familiar somewhat with the death, and it was nice to learn more about the parents. The third installment takes place in Corpus Christi, with Polly in love with Helga Lod. Caspar loves Sophie, which I think is about immigrants. There were some pretty words and nice music and great cast, but without understanding the author's intent, it does not make a play for me. So I'm giving this a mixed to unhappy.
There's a new musical at the York Theatre, A Taste of Things to Come, book, music, and lyrics by Deborah Barsha and Holly Levin. And it concerns a group of diverse women who meet to cook, hopefully to win a Betty Crocker contest in 1957 in Winnetka, Illinois. And, you know, like they sort of break up a bit, and then 10 years later there's a reunion, and we see how they've changed in life and get a sense of feminism and changes for women in general. I thought it was very slick and superficial. The music all sort of seemed about the same to me. I didn't find it at all interesting, but I did think it was performed with verve, and especially the all-women band. But Eva had a very different take.
Well, of course, first of all, this is not your type of play. You prefer your theater more grittier, grimier, and gruesome.
Although I do like food. Okay.
That's right. I loved it. This song, Just a Mom, is my new anthem. It may be just a piece of fluff, but I like my marshmallow fluff. The songs and movement blended into a nice cocktail. It went down smooth and left a nice buzz. The problems and solutions may have been cliche and a bit of a reach at times, but who cares about minor quibbles when you are in such good company? Unfortunately, as the recent election proves, that A Taste of Things to Come is still in the future, but watching these girls dish for a while is quite yummy, and I loved it.
Not recommended for curmudgeons.
Tom Schulman's Dead Poets Society takes place at a prestigious all-boys prep school filled with the usual types. Into their midst comes the unorthodox teacher, Mr. Keating, who prefers to go by Captain, my Captain, and shuns the usual teaching methods and encourages imagination and thinking for themselves. It's 1959, on the cusp of the turbulent 60s, when hair was grown and let down. Of course, this does not sit well with the dean, who is more interested in drilling into their heads tradition, honor, discipline, and excellence. The kids are A+ and really look the part. And it goes downhill with John Doyle's direction. I don't know why he can't have chairs and desks, but he just has them stacked books for chairs and for desks, and it works. It's just horrible. Jason Sudeikis was quite charming and affable as the inspiring teacher, but somehow his depth of character was taken away by not having more intimate scenes between him and his students in his office. This is one of those shows where the movie is better than the play, so maybe if you don't know the movie, you will really enjoy this as you have nothing to compare it to, and it is a good story, but I am giving it a mixed face, and I'm really fed up with John Doyle.
This Day Forward is Nikki Silver's new play at the Vineyard, directed by Mark Brokaw, and Act 1 presents a really terrible 1958 wedding night. The bride tells the groom that she doesn't love him. Later, the man she loves shows up. Act 2 is 2004, and the woman's adult children have to deal with her new dementia, along with her usual anger and bitterness. This is not Nikki Silver at his most hysterical or insightful, but it's still amusing and enjoyable, and not without some thoughtful comments on love, family, and security. The performers and the costumes are especially winning, but the play to me seemed really thin.
Guess what, Mark? I agree with you.
Amazing,
Yay!
but true.
We finally, the day has gone forward with us finally agreeing on something.
Okay.
The first act is full of that delicious Nikki Silver biting humor in an improbable situation, and is like an old-time bedroom farce without the many doors. The tone completely changes in the second act, and this time the improbableness of the situation is too distracting, and I stop believing or even caring about the characters. Without giving too much away, let us just say that the characters were set up a certain way and there was no follow-through in the second act. Still, the acting was perfect, especially in the dual roles where they really got to show off their acting chops and the scenic designs. And I'm just glad it wasn't this creepy, beautiful child type play. I know this is a terrible thing to say, but if you just go for the first act, you will have a marvelous evening and feel you just got your money's worth. And so I'm giving a happy face for the first act and an unhappy face for the second act.
Well, even the first act is really kind of thin and overextended, so I would say skip it.
At Laura Pell's Roundabout, Mike Bartlett's Love, Love, Love should be called Selfish, 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 because that is a problem with the main characters, Kenneth and Sandra. They are 19 in 1960s and they think they're going to change the world. In the second act, they somehow end up married with kids, and they're upper middle class, and we're never sure how they achieve this, and they live in their own little bubble and don't think about the consequences of their actions, and they're still leaving a trail of destruction in their path. Mike Bartlett, with Michael Mayer's direction, through the tricky waters of these tsunami characters, made me wonder about the idealism of the 60s was just a cover for them to be always self-indulgent. How much responsibility does a parent have for their children once they are adults and messed up by their parents' poor upbringing? When faced with unpleasant characters who behave outrageously bad, it is hard to know whether to like the play or not. On the other hand, it is fascinating to see the socioeconomic implications of these horrid people. The only problem was that I had a hard time believing Amy Ryan was 19, but luckily she got to be her own age later on. And aside from that slight quibble, the ensemble cast was first rate. I admire Mike Bartlett so much. All his plays are so different, and yet they are also very clever and make you think long after the play has ended. I don't know if you will love, love, love this, but you will definitely not feel indifferent. So I'm giving this a happy face minus.
New Georges and Soul Project present Alligator, written by Hilary Bettis and directed by Elena Arauz. For me, this play didn't come alive until the end of the first act, when Bobby Moreno, the actor, steps out in an alligator costume and gives an incredible monologue about slaughterhouse for pigs. The human characters were just not as interesting. It's a swamp saga. There's twins, the guy Ty and his sister Emerald, who put on an alligator wrestling show for tourists to the Everglades. There's a young woman, Lucy, who wants to befriend Emerald. There's a couple, a guy who's going to become a Marine and the woman who he loves but won't put out for him. And there's Ty's best friend, a football player who can't acknowledge his love for Ty. I thought it was all kind of dull and sloppily written and overlong, but the alligator is magnificent. So, happy face for the alligator, unhappy for the play.
And we should also mention that Bob Creaser also saw it.
He liked it a bit more.
And his response you can find in the Facebook page.
Yeah, he kind of liked the play a little bit more, but he also liked the alligator.
And he liked the Ty and Emerald characters more too.
Yeah.
I have nothing to show, but this is Bob Creaso's review of Harold Pinter's Old Times, directed and designed by Christopher Martin. A married couple have the wife's old college friend come to visit, and they discuss the past, which may or may not be true. This is a play about memory and truth and deception, how we remember things, how accurate it is, and how we use memory to see things as we need to see them, and how we need to present ourselves to each other. This is not a slice-of-life realistic play, yet it tries to get at what is ultimately real about who we are and how we deal with truth communication. Director Christopher Martin, aided by three excellent and attractive actors, has captured the essential Pinter in the stripped-down minimalist white room set at the Alchemical Theater Laboratory. And he gives it a happy face. There's much more on Facebook. And I can just tell you from my standpoint, I don't like Pinter, but this is very accessible. It's the most accessible Pinter you'll ever see.
The Big Uncut Flick is not only the name of the show we're reviewing, but the name of the 450 show hosted by a man and woman who have to introduce grade Z movies, like Say Your Prayers, Ya Mug, which is played out here. The dialogue of Say Your Prayers, Ya Mug is very sharp, capturing the unique slang of noir films, and the cast is uniformly excellent, displaying great comic timing. But the TV show being spoofed here hasn't been seen since the 50s, and cheesy noir films have been a source of humor and have been done forever. And what's displayed here isn't all that clever for another go-round. I'd like to see playwright Todd Michael and this cast tackle a genre that hasn't been done to death, and possibly something a bit more up-to-date.
Oh, I totally disagree with you. Todd Michaels. See, this is his niche. He does these wonderful film noir things with like women playing men and men playing women, and the pattern is just so boom 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 and funny and clever and hysterical. I love Todd Michael, and he played Arlene Lewis, the put upon wife of the host, and it's sort of funny. I just realized most of the plays we talked about took place in the 50s, and a lot of the plays actually mentioned Betty Crocker a lot,
well,
too.
Actually, the movie is from the 30s. It's the show that's from the 50s, which isn't the type of show that we've seen recently.
Well,
it's kind of obscure for most people, even though it's a kind of precursor to Kathy Lee and Regis Philbin.
Yeah, but that's just it. It's like it's a historical document of the McCarthy times.
I would have loved to have seen a spoof of something beyond noir.
Well,
I mean, I don't even know if I've seen his other film, maybe his other plays. But I would like to see something else.
I've seen several of his plays, and I just want to say, like one of the lines that just had me on the floor was, "I'm gonna blah and blow."
Oh yeah. Oh no, the dialogue is super sharp, and he does it
snappy as anything.
My feeling is
loved it.
I'm giving it a good review because what was there.
And now for a couple plays at 59 East 59th Street, I saw another noir play called The City That Cried Wolf by Brooke Reeves that I saw 10 years ago at the Fringe with Alfie, but it went over his head. This is not for children. Escott Jappy Nimble is a private dick hired by Councilman Humpty Dumpty to see if his wife, Bo Peep, a nightclub singer, is cheating on him in this noir and pun-riddled play with innocent and not-so-innocent nursery rhyme characters being riddled with bullets and punchlines. And the ensemble was one of the hardest-working ensembles. The way they changed their wigs, their characters, their voices was remarkable. Adam LaFacci was still playing the same character he played 10 years ago as a fedora wearing in a fanatical manner about town. Bo Peep, lost in a big city without her beloved sheep, makes sheep's eyes with Jack. Can he or the audience resist her charms? I was enchanted with this production. It didn't lose its appeal. The puns come so fast and furious. There isn't even time to groan. In the city that cried wolf, you just howl.
Terms of Endearment is based not only on the Larry McMurtry novel, but also by the screenplay by James Brooks. It's very similar to the movie. It takes place in Texas in 1960. Relationship between mother and daughter and her husband, and the mother with the randy ex-astronaut next door. I'm not sure how people will feel about it who haven't seen the movie. They may be more surprised than I was. I could anticipate what was coming up. But what I saw, I enjoyed. It's still a good story. It still has, and the dramatic parts have a lot of intimacy, seeing two good actors together. Molly Ringwald.
Yeah, who plays a grandmother, and Jeb Brown, who I love so much, as a saucy Jack Nicholson, who I love so much in Undeniable Sound of Right Now. He's really great in this. But the trouble is, I mean, seeing the movie, I could supplement the scenes that you can't get because it's more visual in a movie, like her on the beach and her in the car and the kids and the conversation with that. So, I mean, I'm giving it a happy face minus because I still liked it and I'm still moved.
Yeah, and I still liked it, so.
Downtown legend Penny Arcade is back with her show Longing Lasts Longer at the St. Anne's Warehouse. This is the double award winner from Edinburgh Theatre, and it's been going on for 1 year. Penny Arcade is like the greatest stand-up person on this planet. She has the personality and the energy of a tigress. It's the most entertaining show, though it is about cultural amnesia and gentrification. And she is saying, instead of culture, the society is running towards cupcakes. You know, it's really, really, really funny. And it's a fantastic lighting design, beautiful music, which Steve Zettner does right on stage. He mixes it. And it's like a rock and roll kind of operatic kind of stand-up memoir kind of a thing. It was the most enjoyable, though I have seen it before. I loved it.
Dan LaFrank's Rancho Viejo, well directed by Daniel Auken, with a dream class about upper suburban Southern California people, with hidden undercurrents beneath their so-called superior white exteriors. Mayor Winningham's hell-bent on making a friend, and Mark Bloom's going to hell with his obsession with this unseen couple that is breaking up with pregnancies and fidelities involved. Mark hated it. I absolutely loved it. It's so good. Much more on Facebook. We ran out of time to talk more about it, but really go see this play. Don't listen to Mark. Now for plays and things mentioned, or we would have mentioned, or we would have liked to have mentioned, but we ran out of time. But this is where you can see all the plays we have talked about. And remember, there's always much longer reviews on the Facebook page where we have time to carry on forever. And, oh, I love the damn Scottish play. It's the only Shakespeare play I like. I love this theater company, Seeing Place Theater. So I'm hoping to catch that. And Mother Africa is much longer at New Victory. Winter Rhythms, there's only this is the last weekend, but a lot of stuff we're going to see, like Karen Akers and things, that will be on our Facebook page, what we talk about them. I've just been told Elements of Oz. It's this immersive Wizard of Oz event. You use your smartphone, and it's like you're actually part of Oz, and it just sounds incredible. And my favorite event is coming up. It's a Wonderful Life act-along. It's at Metropolitan Playhouse. Oh my God, me and Barry go every year, and it is so much fun. One of these years, I'm going to get to play Lionel Barrymore. Bread and Puppet is at Theatre of Tennessee along with Arbina Sharif. And back to Element of Oz. I'm definitely going to go see it, so the review will eventually show up on the Facebook page. But it's only going on until December 18th, so you don't want to miss it. Lots going on at 92nd Street Y and at BAM. Still stuff going on before Christmas. And 59's 59th has so much going on. They're having a good run. And lots still going on at La Mama before Christmas. There's going to be this Italian thing going on that Claudia is going to talk about December 12th. Nikki Land, Nikki Paré, so it's always so much fun. And Anna Christie is apparently very good at the Wild Project. I really don't know why Mark didn't like Rancho Viejo, because usually he would like, I think he's just tired. Anyway, don't forget, Irish Rip has Finian's Rainbow and the Pigeon and the Taj Mahal. And I'll be on the Facebook page talking about Notes from the Field, Ride the Cyclone, and the band's visit. And these reviews will be on the Facebook page and Twitter that we didn't get to talk about before. And don't forget to pick up your Performing Arts Insider, Cultural Heartbeat of New York City. Next show is going to be Christmas Eve.